The Dawn of X Wave 1 is complete, so it's time for 2020 X-Men theories and predictions. Today I'll answer what are the biggest hanging threads in the Dawn of X era of X-Men, what major events are on the horizon for the X-Men in 2020, and the best upcoming comic books in the Dawn of X Wave number 2. I'm your host, Dave Busing, founder and editor-in-chief of comicbookherald.com. If you like the CBH YouTube channel or podcast, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing. Links to Comic Book Herald channels and Patreon support are included in the show notes. You can find full X-Men and comic book reading orders on comicbookherald.com, and spoilers for discussed comics may follow as I review. In terms of what's up next, here's the Wave 2 slate of editions for new X titles launching from February through May. X-Men Fantastic Four, Wolverine, giant-size X-Men, with focus on Jean Grey and Emma Frost, Magneto, Nightcrawler, Fantomax, and Storm, Cable, Hellions, X-Factor, Children of the Atom, and, recently announced, an X-Men Empyre mini. I'm genuinely excited for all of these to varying degrees. My current excitement rankings are X-Men Fantastic Four number 1, because Chip Zdarsky is an excellent writer. The hook of bringing Franklin Richards to Krakoa ties back to House of X number 1. The Mr. Sinister tease from Marvel Incoming, with him wanting to get his hands on Omega-level mutant Franklin Richards. And because I've already read the first issue, and it's very good and teases Doctor Doom. The Giant Size series, written by Hickman with a rotating cast of superstar artists like Russell Dowderman on a Jean Grey and Emma Frost book, and Alan Davis on a Nightcrawler showcase. Yes, please. We also now know from Hickman's most recent interview on Adventures in Poor Taste that the 5 giant-size issues will technically all connect as pieces of a larger whole, which is very, very exciting. X-Factor, because Leah Williams and David Baldeon, the creative team, on this book are extremely talented, and because the book's hook of investigating the resurrection protocols is extremely Krakoa-specific, which is what I'm looking for in the Dawn of X. Cable. This is 90% based on the fact that Jerry Dugan has been killing it on Marauders, one of my favorite Dawn of X Wave 1 books, and because I love Phil Noto, the artist interiors. I'm also really curious how time travel may or may not play a role on Krakoa. We know Moira has disallowed it, and in mutants with precognitive abilities, but how do time travelers factor into this? Wolverine. Likewise, Ben Percy has been doing excellent work on X-Force, and the Kuberts are damn legends. My excitement for Wolverine has already escalated following a stellar debut issue, and frankly, had I ranked these after reading Wolverine number 1, it could have moved up my list significantly. Hellions, a deliberately weird lineup, makes this a wait and see. It's either going to be an absolute standout or a total dud. I don't see any middle ground for the Hellions. Children of the Atom, I love the ambitious gamble here with all new kid sidekicks of the X-Men, but I'll definitely need to see a few issues before I'm totally sold. What else do we know is on the horizon for the X-Men in Dawn of X Wave 2? First up, Empyre. X-Men number 10 is an Empyre tie-in. I believe, according to May Solicits, X-Men number 11 will also be an Empyre tie-in, and there will be a 4-issue Empyre miniseries focused on the X-Men, with some writing by the X-Men writers we already know from the Dawn of X, such as Jonathan Hickman. We also have Inferno teased, Madeline Pryor and her return as the Goblin Queen in the pages of Hellions. This connects back to the 1989 crossover Inferno, which I'll talk about a little bit, and a Summer of X-Men teased. Free Comic Book Day, May 2020. There will be an X-Men focused issue, which is super exciting. It's going to be written by Hickman, and Marvel's referred to this as a game-changing summer for the X-Men, which could mean a crossover event, but that's not a lock yet. Regardless, it's a clear signal that Marvel's got big plans lining up for the 1-year anniversary of House of X and Powers of 10. So why does Empyre make sense for the X-Men? Well, there's a bunch of reasons. First, New Mutants space setup by Jonathan Hickman. I was tempted to list this as a hanging thread, but now that New Mutants number 7 is out in the wild, it would appear that a big part of Hickman's plan writing the OG New Mutants in space was in order to set up a Krakoan gate in Shiar territory and on a floating space island of theirs that the Shiar owned, that Cyclops requests in the image you can see here on the YouTube screen. So we have Krakoan gates on the Moon, Mars, and now Shiar Islands in space. Speaking of the Moon, that is, in fact, where the famous Kree vs. Katati attempted genocide takes place in the pages of the Avengers Celestial Madonna saga, which is referenced heavily as source material for the upcoming Empyre event, co-written by Al Ewing and Dan Slott. Another good cosmic rationale for the X-Men at this point, there are arguably non-Earth mutants. One of the first that comes to mind is Danger from the Joss Whedon, John Cassaday Astonishing X-Men, but there are also the group of Skrulls known as Cadre K that Professor X straight up fronted for a hot minute in the 90s Uncanny X-Men. Now, it's entirely possible these aren't technically mutants, but this is an idea I'm really interested in seeing. What does the Krakoa era mean for alien mutants, or even, deviants, races that would, sort of connect to the mutant goal? Why do we care if the Goblin Queen's back in this tease for Inferno? I'm far from the biggest Inferno event fan out there, so I'll admit a majority of my excitement about Madeline Pryor's Krakoa debut is tied to the mysterious teases in the pages of Powers of X's Sinister Secrets. For the uninitiated, Maddie is a clone of Jean Grey, made by Mr. Sinister, who Cyclops married after Jean's death in the Dark Phoenix saga, and had a baby, Nathan Summers, with. For a host of reasons that include Cyclops bailing on her and their newborn child, and discovering she was actually a Sinister clone, Maddie turned into the Goblin Queen and got really friendly with a bunch of demons in the pages of the 89 Inferno. So, given Sinister's presence in the pages of Hellions and the previous tease about a returning Inferno, I'm tremendously curious what the heck this means for the nation of Krakoa. What's still to come? Here's a list of the House Powers threads I'd like to see explored in Dawn of X Wave 2 and beyond. Moira McTaggart, Timelines and Secret History, Destiny and Mystique, Nimrod, Arakko, Apocalypse and the First Horseman, Phoenix, King Egg, Shiar Xandra, Sinister Schemes and Sinister Secrets, Missing Omega-level Mutants. What's Namor's role in all this? Laura Kinney and company inside the vault. Why can't Kate Pryde use the gates and maybe resurrect? And all the groundwork on Black Holes, Cosmic Titans, and Zorn from Powers of X. Let's get into each one by one. First up, Moira, Timelines, and her secret history. The absolute biggest missing link in the Dawn of X is the presence of Moira McTaggart and her various lifelines extending out into the future of X. This is clearly no accident. It's not like Hickman up and forgot about his star player. But given Moira's show-stealing performances in the House of X event, it's been almost cruel to withhold more of her story. My prediction: Moira will make an appearance in the 2020 Free Comic Book Day special, and it will lead to a 12-issue maxi series, a Moira special, Moira X, written by Marjorie Liu of Monstrous and the Best Black Widow Story of All Time fame, with art by Vanessa Del Rey. Mystique, Destiny. Why is Moira so afraid of Destiny, and what's Mystique going to do next? I started talking about this thread after it was so beautifully explored in X-Men number 6, but I'll admit I still feel like there's more to the Destiny-Moira relationship than just the general fear of Krakoa finding out Moira's lesson is we always lose. To my mind, there has to be something dramatically abhorrent in Moira's plan to justify her feverish devotion to keeping Destiny out of resurrection protocols. My prediction: Mystique's certainly not going to sit and take it from Magneto and Charles Xavier forever, so I suspect she'll take matters into her own hands to bring back Destiny. Even wilder, I expect her to double-cross mutant kind and turn to the Nimrod developing Orcus in order to achieve this. Also here, shouts to the YouTube commenter on the Comic Book Herald channel who suggested that Mystique would free Sabretooth from his Krakoan prison in her efforts to turn the tide and free Destiny. I love that theory and can definitely see it happening. The return of Nimrod is catastrophic news for Magneto and Professor X's plans, as we've discussed. The dramatic House of X number 4 infiltration didn't stop the rise of Nimrod, as we learned in the pages of X-Men number 4. Nimrod's been built up as this amazing and frankly kind of comical and charming villain in the pages of Powers of 10, so in his powers form, Nimrod is the big bad of the Hickman X-Men universe, and it's kind of honestly refreshing to know it's not the last we've seen of him. As predicted above, Mystique will not put a stop to Orcus, and Nimrod will become operational even sooner in this timeline than Moira's past lives. This will force Moira McTaggart to choose if there's any salvaging this lifeline, or if she gambles and pushes that big ol' reset button that's sitting out there in the possibility of the Krakoan era of X-Men and tries to get to life number 11. Arakko, Apocalypse, and the First Horseman. We know that Apocalypse has his favorite First Horseman still trapped in limbo in battle on Arakko. We've seen Arakko come to Krakoa in the pages of X-Men number 2. This sort of, these brothers, essentially, this island of brothers. Wow, it's hard to sum up what they are. They are brother islands? Sure, that makes sense. But Apocalypse is still seeking his First Horseman. Prediction: Apocalypse is only interested in Otherworld in the pages of Excalibur because he thinks it will allow him magical access to free his first horseman, and by Excalibur number 12, he will be successful. The Phoenix. We know it's one of the beings that the Phalanx fear. We also know that Jean Grey is walking around in her Marvel Girl costume, and as Jonathan Hickman alluded to, it's a reference to the most famous time that Jean last chose the Marvel Girl outfit is when she was Phoenix free, essentially, and being put on trial by the Shiar. My prediction here, I think we'll see a deliberate strategy to stay away from Phoenix stories until year 2 or 3 of the X-Men's Krakoa era. I think they're arguably a little too popular and a little too big in the X-Men mythos. I think it's something that gets played with a little too often. And a secondary prediction here is once we do get into the Phalanx and the future timelines and a lot of these big cosmic ideas where I think a lot of this planning is going to lead us years down the road in these X-Men comics, when the Phoenix does show up and becomes a threat, it's not going to inhabit Jean. I don't think they're going to go back to that well. Speaking of giant cosmic ideas, how about the King Egg of the Brood? My prediction here, we will see the Brood and the King Egg in the pages of the X-Men Empyre tie-ins. Why not bring out the Brood in a giant cosmic conflict? Empyre promises to bring Kree and Skrull together against a common threat. I think you bring all the cosmic players into the game, including the Brood. And my prediction here, without having looked at the solicit in detail, so this could easily be debunked, is that X-Men number 11 will bring the King Egg into the game. All right, what else about Shiar Xandra? Speaking of why X-Men makes sense in Empyre, you have Professor X's sort of daughter on the Shiar throne, and she is learning the ways of governing and being a queen, and she's learning these from her aunt Deathbird. My prediction, Professor X will pull a classic Professor X and abandon the X-Men in Krakoa to spend time with his sort of daughter in the Shiar Empyre. This is basically Professor X's go-to move to abandon mutants in their hour of need, and he's going to do it here again in an effort to both consider how to expand Krakoa's cosmic presence and to get to know Xandra, this child of him and oh man, I'm blanking on Mike, Landra. Sinister schemes and sinister secrets. After an event-stealing debut in Powers of 10, Mr. Sinister has had a strangely off-brand Dawn of X. That will happen when you're part of the Fallen Angels mini, which has basically been treated like ignorable fanfiction, even by Marvel as it was coming out. It's inarguably time to begin weaving together more sinister schemes and secrets. I'm sure his presence in Hellions will help there. My prediction? I have no idea. He's unpredictable. Beyond the ideas and theories I've already put together around the displayed sinister secrets, there's no telling what Mr. Sinister is going to be doing aside from a handful of things that I've already discussed. And guess what? We have more sinister secrets dropping in the pages of Marauders as recent as issue number 8, which just came out the week of this recording. Speaking of Sinister, though, we have missing Omega-level mutants. It was made a pretty big deal that Omega mutants were the most powerful, or not the most powerful, but the most important asset of Krakoa. That is something they were stockpiling. It's a big reason why in X-Men Fantastic Four, everyone is so interested in bringing Franklin Richards to Krakoa. Mr. Sinister, of course, is very interested in Omega-level mutants, as we saw in the pages of Marvel's incoming number 1. But there are two in particular, Legion and Mr. M, who we still don't know. Sinister doesn't know. Nobody in the mutant world seems to know where they are. As Sinister says here, no one has it because they don't know where to find it. Legion and Mr. M are still hiding. My prediction, it's going to be Mr. M that we see first. I don't think Krakoa is ready for Legion and all of the challenges that he brings. And we also have to consider the last time we saw Legion was in the Age of X-Man story, where he sort of shows up and creates all sort of chaos and havoc in tandem with Nate Gray, the X-Man, who we also have not seen. So I think we see Legion coming back with Nate Gray with some sort of oblique reference to Age of X-Men when they do show up. But I think it's going to be Mr. M that Sinister gets his hands on first. What's Namor's role in all of this? As you may remember from the pages of House of X and Powers of 10, there's a really great Namor and Professor X scene where Namor gets in the stunningly fantastic line, "Go away, little man, and don't come back until you really mean it." My prediction here, based on something I read recently as part of the My Marvelous Year reading club. Towards the end of God Loves, Man Kills, Professor X is ready to give up on his dream and join Magneto. I see us reaching a similar point with Krakoa by year's end, where Charles loses faith in Moira and joins with Namor to give up on the new dream of we get peace and humans get better lives. Instead, it will just be we get peace because we are your gods now. Namor, in this state of mind, he wants Professor X to admit their superiority and to fully give into it. And I think that's something that, if we're going to bring Namor back onto the scene as a mutant ally, as an ally, as the King of Atlantis, I think that's what Professor X is going to have to commit to for mutant kind. Another hanging thread, we have Laura Kinney, and this one obviously just developed in Dawn of X. I'm sure there is every intention to get back to it. Laura Kinney and company, Sync, and one other that now I can't think of, are inside the vault where the children of the vault go. And my prediction here, Laura will come out. The other two will have passed. She'll come out and she's going to be ancient. Thousands of years will have passed. We had Old Woman Laura. It's kind of a tongue-in-cheek storyline in the Tom Taylor written era of the all-new Wolverine. This is going to be old, ancient Laura. She is going to have seen some things, lived thousands of years, and she's going to be an ally to the children of the Vault. I think her time in the Vault will have changed her significantly. I think there's two ways this could go. One, it changes her in terms of we now have this strange sort of warped version of her character that is not friendly and an ally to the X-Men. Or, alternatively, it could be that she finds a way for the children of the Vault and the X-Men to pair together rather than functioning as adversaries. Another question, why can't Kate Pryde use the gates and possibly resurrect? My prediction here, a Marvel teaser from Marauders number 11 is seemingly confirming that Kate's issue number 6 death is really so very real. This is comics, so I doubt it, and my prediction is Emma and company actually stage a Tom Sawyer-esque funeral for Kate in order to fake out Sebastian Shaw and strike back at him and his Hellfire plans. It still does not make sense to me that, one, Kate couldn't be resurrected. I just don't get why that would be the case. And two, it would blow my mind if Marvel committed to making Kate something other than a mutant. I think that would be a very, very big mistake that I don't see them making. All right, another thing that we need more on, all the groundwork on black holes, cosmic titans, and Zorn's black hole from Powers of 10, plus the Phalanx. We got to bring all that cosmic insanity back from Powers of 10. My prediction here, we haven't seen the last of Zorn or the Chimeras from the Powers of 10 timeline. I'm looking for them to come blasting in through Arakko, and I think Apocalypse is going to be the one to discover them. What that will mean, of course, time will tell. So, there you have it. Some theories, predictions, some things I'm looking forward to for Dawn of X, Wave 2, 2020. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your opinions, your comments, other things that I may have missed that you're looking for. Go ahead and chime in on the comments on the YouTube channel. Or, of course, you can find me at Comic Book Herald pretty much anywhere online. Again, for Dawn of X reading orders and content, which is getting trickier. The Dawn of X does not follow release date nearly as easily as it did in Wave 1. You can go on over to comicbookherald.com at any time. Thanks, everybody, for listening, and, as always, enjoy the comics.